welcome, everybody. And thank you, Tony. That was awesome. And just what wonderful energy to bring us all in this morning or evening, wherever you may be, to our final arrival of the Gaia Journey inhales, which we've been holding over the last 14 weeks. We are just finishing week 13. And really, this process together, this journey together has just been so rich and so spanning the globe. And it's been absolutely amazing. And Tony, your music holding us and bringing us together and just capturing the pulse of our time together has just been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you, Tony, and thank you everybody who has been part of this journey. We'll be doing quite a bit of that tonight, so or this morning. In order to kick us off, I'll just remind us a warm welcome to all of you who have been here before. And if tonight, today, this morning is your first time with us, I'll give a little overview just to share a warm welcome to you as well. And I'll give just a little overview of what we've been up to on this Gaia journey, our global activation of intention and action. As I just mentioned, this is where we are, week 13. We've been in this process of an inhale and exhale together, where we've really been processing what's been happening across the globe over the last few weeks and months. And really this began when we knew that COVID-19 was a global pandemic. And we realized that much of the work that we had been doing over the last decades, Otto Scharmer and the Presencing Institute had been developing Theory U and these methods and tools of being able to move through times of transition. And that is exactly what we've been doing now during this time of transition and disruption we've been facing as a global community. To do that, we started with this segment of staying with, really just staying with what was present for us, what was going on. We went into this deep resonance practice, connecting into our highest possibility and really just sensing into what is possible for our world, what is possible for our communities. And then moving into this moment of moving with. And what we've seen over this time is, in the early stages of this, we looked at what would happen, if it's really societal disruption and we're really moving towards reimagining civilization. What are the core components of this that we're needing to look at? And we had Vandana Shiva join us. We had Dana Cunningham. We had the Noongar elders and leaders, Noel Nanup, Richard Wally, and Carol Inns, who joined us in that very beginning moment. And Vandana Shiva brought us into looking at where our food system for so long has actually not been serving us. And Dana Cunningham brought us into this moment around structural violence and understanding how, for hundreds of years and in this very moment, this way of treating each other has not been working. And in recent weeks and months with what we've been experiencing in our communities at different times throughout this global pandemic, we've seen a dismantling of our food system or the inadequacy of it being able to really feed people. And we've seen uprisings around the world addressing systemic racism and structural violence. And Dana described structural violence as a set of human agreements and invited us to look at how might we choose new agreements. And so many of us have been looking at those new systems now. I know Otto will share more with us about Noel and some of what he shared with us, but listening to the deep wisdom of these elders and leaders who have been carrying the wisdom of the ancestors and bringing that forth throughout this Gaia journey has just been an incredible guidance for us at this time. So, that kind of energy throughout this entire experience, being in our social solidarity circles, connecting with each other in hubs, It's been incredibly powerful to join each other, care for one another, as we brought in, I think it was just 2 weeks ago, that we can be the carers for everything, and how that shifts our paradigm and shifts our way of being. And speaking of who has been caring for all of us, and our global community, I stand here in awe of, wow, the 13,000 of us who have been coming together in various ways, connecting in these sessions, connecting in the close to 200 hubs, in moments where we couldn't cross physically many, boundaries or barriers of nations and states and communities. We have been cross-pollinating across the globe, and that is thanks to the names that you see here. There are so many people, the 8+ language tracks, who have been bringing this into these language communities in ways that is not just a translation. It's carrying the essence and bringing it into a cultural context. And that creates a different type of activation, a different clarity of intention, and a new way of kind of really globally cross-pollinating in ways we may have never thought of before. So it is really thanks to all of these people who have been holding this with us all together. So I invite us to sit together in awe of this, in awe of this moment of our 14 weeks together, and invite a video that Rachel Hensch created with the team to share some of these voices that you just saw the names of, and what the Gaia journey has meant to them.
C'est un champ humain de connexion et d'espace d'écoute collective.
The Gaia journey has really expressed to me what's possible, to see all of us collaborating across the entire planet, across time zones and language barriers.
重新开启深度连接自己与他人与整个生态系统的旅程。
Aprender a mirar con nuevos ojos. Aquellas posibilidades infinitas que se abren compartiendo con todos en este gran viaje.
Die Gelegenheit, Menschen zusammenzubringen mit der Absicht, aus dieser Krise hinaus neue Möglichkeiten zu entdecken und wachsen zu lassen.
Gaia es un viaje de inmersión profunda en el no saber.
L'occasion de me relier à des compagnons généreux dans le monde.
Es un viaje colectivo de descubrimiento y creación.
Gaia is una fiesta full of consciousness.
一个人做的有限，但如果有机会，我们一群人可以去做一些事情，是可以让这个改变可以发生的。
Evolving, emerging, in a connected global community.
Una aventura del no saber, pero estar disponible.
It's about embracing diversity and submerge myself into the world's different cultures.
世界中の日本語話者たちが集まり、一つの目的に向かって動き出す場だと思います。
E lasciarsi sorprendere da quello che non potevamo immaginare, ma che riusciamo a fare insieme.
Y sobre todo darse cuenta de que no estamos solos.
É um lugar seguro, onde nós todos podemos nos alimentar.
Una visión global que dio a mi propósito de ayuda una intención más sólida.
私にとって本当の意味でのグローバルアクティベーションです。
Een mogelijkheid voor mensen om samen te komen en zich met zichzelf en met elkaar te verbinden.
C'est un voyage à plusieurs niveaux, global, collectif, dans les équipes, et aussi, pour moi personnellement, un instant de transformation intérieure profond.
I'm just consistently blown away by all of these voices and incredible people who have been holding this. Rachel, and also to Stephen Day, just a continued thank you for all of the incredible video pieces that we've been holding throughout this Gaia journey. It's allowed us to really grow together, and has meant that not each of us needs to be in every single session to be able to capture all of the global cross-pollination. Some of us can sleep in between or do whatever else we need to do and be able to catch up and get the highlights and the essentials. There are so many people who have been holding this, and to recognize the growth that each of us has been experiencing in this time together has been outstanding. One of the incredible people also on that list is Eva Pomeroy, who you have seen a few times before and has been holding the sense-making of for each of us, really, but in all focus groups and conversations and surveys, and pouring through the data of what's really happening for us, what is needed now, and feeding that back to us in so many different ways. So I pass it over to you, Eva, to share a little bit more of your what you've been finding.
Great. Thanks, Antoinette. And I'm enjoying somebody's comment that came right at the end of the video. It was just a big capital letter, wow. And so I'm really feeling that. So I'd like to bring in a piece from the research that does overlap with some of what people were sharing in the video from the language tracks. And it's a piece about around the theme of clarifying intention. And wanting to share a bit of what's happening around clarifying intention for this community. Some of you have shared that this is still an area that you're kind of sensing into. And others have shared that you are coming to greater clarity around your intention. And one of the things that's been really interesting with that is that a number of people have mentioned that the intention that they're holding now is quite different from the one that they were holding at the beginning of the Gaia journey. And that's unfolded in a few different ways. So there are those amongst you who are moving into action, moving toward projects, sometimes with really unexpected stakeholders, or in unexpected places, or moving into action that's completely different than you had imagined at the beginning of the journey. And there are also people who have shared that as their intention clarifies, their shift is more around a shift of scale, kind of in the opposite direction. And I think that was best illustrated for me by Joel in the focus groups, who shared that when he first came into Gaia, he was really thinking that he would be moving into action around systemic change. But as he sort of slowed down and became clearer about what was most important and right for him, he realized that his next step action is much more local. And he said, it's very local. It's at the level of my family. And that felt important to share back with the community, I think, especially in light of some of the comments that surfaced in the most recent focus groups in this last exhale period, where a few folks shared that holding the intention for systemic change can actually kind of block them from crystallizing and stepping into action because it's so big, right? There's something sort of intimidating about it. And so it felt very important to, I guess, mirror that within this community, people are clarifying intention and stepping into action at all levels of scale. And I think what's really striking for me or most significant is more about how people are sourcing their action. So talking about listening inwardly, slowing down, trusting intuition, a number of comments that we would call acting from the place of letting go and letting come. And that seems really significant. So that's a bit about the content from the research. The one other piece to mention is that we will do a final survey. It'll be at we'll put it in the chat at the end of this session and send it out in the final email as well. And here we're really looking to explore impact, also to get input into our steps forward. And so that's it for me. Thanks, Antoinette.
Thank you, Eva, and we'll send it to over to Otto to share continued framing for today's session.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Eva, for this mirroring back. And I think what you shared is really reminding us how real change actually happens, which is you kind of maybe have a bigger picture or aspiration or intention, but then the actual change starts very, very small. And that's exactly what we see in nature, right? Kind of it starts from seeds, they're small, almost invisible, and then something significant begins to happen. And it reminds me actually of the first session we had on this track, the 8 p.m. track. And Antoinette was already made mention of Dr. Noel, the Aboriginal Nyungar elder, who talked about that very issue, all right? And it's an issue that really is at the core of all of Theory U, right? And precisely at the core of the current moment that we are in. And that's why I want to read kind of the key, almost, I would say, almost instruction that he gave to us. So his key consideration, right? So that he left us with. Here's what he said. All we need to do is to have a piece of the path to the future. And that's ours. And we polish and we hone that. And we place that in the pathway that we are building. And as we build that pathway, it is changing us as the builders of that path. And it also shapes the destination that we are going to. So that's really what this session is about. It's landing in our current moment. Landing in our current moment of each of us holding that piece that we can own, that we can polish, that we can cultivate, and then place it in the road forward that we are building together. So, what is that piece? What has clarified for you in terms of what is yours to do as we move into a future that is largely unknown? And that's a little bit the question that we want you to invite in to investigate. And let me share my screen here. So this is a little bit kind of the backdrop, right, of the journey that we have been taking. The ecological divide that Vandana Shiva talked about. And you could say that's our first kind of from a, let's say, kind of when I look from my tradition, Euro-American white men. So they're like 3 original sins, right? So that, we have by and large not really faced or looked at, right? And the first one is the crime against nature. And that has to do everything with the ecological divide. The second one has to do with the genocide on indigenous people, and here in the United States with slavery and all forms of other racism. And the third divide here, the spiritual divide, is something that really connects to that question that Dr. Noel was talking about. How is it actually that we can tap into the emerging future and what is ours to do? So as we moved into this investigation from a viewpoint or from a lens of awareness-based systems change, we said that like foundational for that are the principles that you cannot understand a system unless you change it. So action learning, action research. You cannot change a system unless you transform consciousness. So that's kind of shifting the inner place from that we operate. And that you cannot transform consciousness unless you make a system sense and see itself. And what was added to these three principles came from the GAIA Brazil track, where Ubirasi Patacho, an indigenous leader from Brazil, looked at that and said, and added to that this fourth principle: in order to do all these things, we have to be the system. We have to embody the system that we would like to see. In 1989, the Berlin Wall collapsed. And we were in a quite similar moment to now. What we saw back then was the beginning of the end of the Cold War system. It was a wall that collapsed between two different social systems, socialism and capitalism. Today, a different type of wall is collapsing. It's an inner wall. It's a wall that separates us from the system, from each other, and from ourselves. As this wall breaks down, we become aware of various forms of systemic and institutional racism that we have been discussing over the past few weeks, more and more, and that manifest in three types of violence: direct, structural, and attentional violence. By which I mean not seeing another in their highest future possibility. How do we transform these types of violence? By becoming aware of our own blind spot. So for example, in my case, realizing that there is a blind spot in terms of not seeing, which means, the frozen mind, which means not truly seeing what is going on, either based on ignorance or based on conscious or unconscious bias. So for example, the slavery patrols. So I was unaware really of the direct continuity that the police force here in the United States has to the slave patrols that were catching slaves, that runaway slaves, and are in a direct continuity to what later became lynching and what today has morphed into police brutality against African American citizens. Desensing is the second blind spot, which means you see something, but you don't feel it. So that's the frozen heart, which means kind of, even though you notice something outside yourself, you're stuck inside your own skin. You can't really empathize with what's going on. You engage in othering, cynicism or hate, right? Basically emotionally distancing yourself. And when I look at myself, I would say, yes, I was aware of, many of the shocking levels of inequalities, right, and structural violence in society. But did I really empathize with that? So did I really open up to that, or was I not relating to that mainly in the mode of othering, so that it was not really my primary concern? And the third blind spot that I noticed in myself is not acting, the issue of apathy or frozen will, which means you see something, you feel something, and you're not acting on it. You're not moving towards transforming this issue, which, the frozen will tends to show up in two forms, either as fear leading to depression, so that's kind of frozen inside yourself, or in the form of fanaticism leading to destruction, basically going to the other side of the extreme. But when you look at this whole phenomenon, what is it that keeps these three types of violence going? What is it that keeps systemic racism and trauma going in our societies? It's the unawareness about these three blind spots. And unless we engage in the uncomfortable work of becoming aware of these blind spots and actively working on that, this is not going to change. And one source of inspiration, what has inspired me most over the past few days and weeks, is that you can, across the country, across communities, across organizations, you begin to see this very uncomfortable work happening and progressing. Zooming out a little bit and wrapping up. So systemic racism and trauma, what keeps, and the blind spots, frozen mind, frozen heart, frozen will, what keeps that going? It's basically an architecture, you could say, of separation, where we are separate from the world, not seeing, where we separate ourselves from each other, not feeling, where we separate ourselves from the sources of our transformative actions, not acting. How could we transform that? By building architectures and fields of connections that allow us to tap into unconditional witnessing for truly seeing each other, unconditional love for truly holding each other, and unconditional courage and confidence to truly supporting each other. In order to move on a collective level into a process of reckoning, reconciliation, and reparation, leading on a path and journey towards true healing and regenerating the foundations of our society, of our civilization. The shadow is not a problem that we need to fix. Seeing our own shadow is the source of transformation that enables us to step into a new world. So, what is your piece of the path forward that you are holding? What is the seed of the future that you are holding when you look into the mirror of our shadow in the context of your personal life and work, in the context of your organization, of your institution, or in the context of your country or culture? What are the blind spots So what is it that you're currently not seeing, but that maybe you should pay more attention to? So in other words, where is it that you're not seeing what's going on, frozen mind? Where is it that you're seeing but not feeling, frozen heart? And where is it that you're seeing and feeling but not acting, frozen will? If the shadow is not a problem that we need to fix, but seeing the shadow is a source for our transformation and for our capacity to step into a new world, what is yours to hold? What is yours to own? Kind of what's the piece that you are holding that you should cultivate? Antoinette.
Incredibly powerful questions, Otto, and thank you for that framing and immersing us in that level of depth that we need now, especially as we move forward. I'd like to allow us to just land in what you just shared. And as we do that, I also acknowledge that here, as many of you know, I stand in north of New York City, which is land that was formerly the territory of the Lenape, and that today is Juneteenth in the United States. And I think it's an incredibly appropriate day to invite us to look at that shadow, looking at the moment in which we are facing a time that, at least here in the United States, we are just learning to accept this as a national holiday. We are just seeing and understanding what it means to have emancipated the enslaved people. And earlier today, Michelle Ashen shared with us a story of Ubuntu from South Africa, acknowledging that I am because you are, and how powerful that sentiment is, and the courage that it takes to really see. So I invite us into that in your own context, in the way that Otto just shared, in your own community and organization or country, and to just let that land in the body. I invite us to get the feet flat on the ground, if that's available to you, and just feel a sense of rooting into the earth. And as you do that, perhaps feeling a sense of uplift in the spine and the back, giving attention to the back of the body, feeling the strength in the back, which allows us to have a softness on the front. And then feeling also the connection to sky, the connection to an expanse of limitless possibility. And with each inhale, connecting between earth and sky with our human body, just tuning into what is that shadow place, what is that thing that is a blind spot, something we may not necessarily want to see. Thomas Hugel shared with us weeks ago the experience of collective trauma and how much we want to fragment that piece of pain outside of ourselves. And in this moment, I invite us to take a look at that with curiosity. Just opening the mind to what is it that is wanting to be seen. What is it that we're needing to reckon with, to reconcile, to repair in our own lives, in our world? And tuning that attention to the space around the heart. And feeling a softening around the heart. And for a moment, tuning in to the feeling. It may not have clear words. It may be sensation. Maybe in the throat, behind the eyes. Just tuning into the feeling that is there. Being with it. Letting it move through the body. And tuning the awareness and attention with the breath to the space just below the belly button. And softening the place there that is connecting our own spirit to that of the world. And knowing that that experience or pain or shadow, or that which has been kept in shadow for far too long, is asking something of us. It is inviting us to tend to our piece of the path. It is inviting us into our next place of possibility. And just noticing in this moment, softening that space between us and the future, us and the world, what message it has for us now. What am I being called into? What are we being called into now? And if you've softened your gaze, you can return to a page if you have a piece of paper and pen nearby. And if there is a message, if there is something that came through, maybe it's the feeling that you're needing to be with or the thing that you're just needing to see right now. That step is maybe more than enough. It takes so much for us to be with these pieces. And it is an evolving practice. It's a constant re-looking at it. So as we do that, perhaps just writing that down and seeing what comes up for you. And in just a moment, we will move into breakouts. So I'll give us about a few seconds to write what's coming up. And whether you have something profound yet or not, that is okay. We will just begin to process with each other, and we'll move into breakouts where we'll share, we'll just begin the conversation because we have much more to do together in our limited time. So we'll just spend about 10 minutes together and give each person just a couple minutes to speak. So we'll just open up a space of curiosity and all of the holding spaces that Otto shared with us. And just make sure that everybody shares once before we share twice. So enjoy your time together, and we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. I know that wasn't enough time. It never is. But thank you also to Tony and Kelvy for holding space here in the room and in YouTube for us to reflect and be with this social art process, which has been magic in and of itself. We'd love to hear from all of us, and we'll do the best we can to do that in just a few minutes. The ways we can do that are quite familiar by now, I'm guessing. You can type directly in the chat, and you can do that by clicking the little chat button at the bottom of your screen, typing in the right-hand side. If you would like to share via voice, we'll take just a few comments before hearing from some of our community member guests, some of their living examples. But what we'd love to hear now from each of you is just anything that may have been coming up. Perhaps there was an essence statement that just really caught your heart, I want to say, or perhaps there was something that came up for you in your journaling that you'd love to just share with us. So I see the chat already going. If you'd like to have your voice and video come through, you can click participants and the little blue raise hand, and we will be able to see you and bring your voice and video in. Looks like we've got Rick. Rick coming in first. We've got a few. Here we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, in our small group, I was asked to share something because I didn't know anything about this group, and a friend told me about it first time on. And the thing that came to mind was the whole notion of network power. How can you harness network power? And I was asked to share this resource. It's a book called The Seventh Sense by, I put it in the window there, Joshua Ramos Cooper. And I think that provides a different perspective on how to develop mass movements, how to use network power. So this is FYI. So that's all I have to say.
I would love to hear just maybe one more little clip on what is network power and what would that mean for us as we consider movement building.
Well, his work originally started by studying terrorists and understanding how terrorists were so effective at harnessing the dark side and having disproportionate power. And his book is about, well, how, and it's network power is it's sort of a little ephemeral, but it's difficult to understand. But he basically said, whoever is able to master network power will win the day. And one of the comments I said in our group was that, civilizations go through phases, and they go through plateaus, destruction, and, resurrection phases. And we're in that at the moment. And hopefully we can go to a higher civilization. And so the question is, how can we use network power at scale to be able to create the sort of movements that you're doing? And there are lots of others out there. I just discovered you this morning, how to do that, but how to create networks of networks, because one network isn't enough.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rick. And it's I'm absolutely curious, and I think it's connecting that the essence of our human spirit along with what you just shared, the networks of networks. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we have a few more comments. I'll bring in Ruth coming in next.
Hi. For me, I think what has come up, and it's kind of a culmination of all of these that I've managed to hear and listen to, is a sense of anticipation that we're on the verge of something very, very powerful that we have the opportunity to choose to step into or to choose to step back and ignore. And that's on both an individual level, but it's also at every conceivable level, including a global level. And while that has been an individual thing for me for quite some time, I've felt very alone with it, and getting reconnected with this group, I don't feel alone anymore. And just the fact that there are people on this call and other calls that you've had, like on the other sessions that you've had from all over the world, is reassuring, inspiring, scary as hell. And yet at the same time, there's a sense of collective power that I haven't felt in the past. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ruth. And I love the feeling of us walking with you right now, that we are not alone. I'm standing, and so I'm close as I can be to walking, but I love the feeling of us walking together in this journey. To Kira, or Kyra, I'm not quite sure, but Kira next.
Yeah, it's Kira. I so deeply resonate with what you just said, Ruth. And I think a big theme that came up in our little discussion group was we're all sort of grappling with the open versus closed will. And we were talking about the importance of really acknowledging and feeling into and working through fear. And acknowledging a really strong like social connection and self-preservation instinct, that it's really, really hard to speak out because we all crave connection. And I really think, to Ruth's point, that this Gaia journey has been just such a source of acceptance and connection. It's almost a practice ground for speaking out more broadly. And it's just been a great source of inspiration, and I think a source of courage. And I'm really excited to continue to step into and through the fear that I might feel about sharing the truth that I found in this Gaia journey.
Thank you so much, Kira, for sharing that. And also what's happening in the Zoom chat. I love the Zoom chat of this session. And just there was someone who said, can we harness positive network power? From the comment earlier from Rick, and just really loving how that conversation is generating and generative and building on each other. Wonderful. We'll bring Alan in next.
Hi, thank you. What resonated in the group, at least a couple of us said that the sense of letting one's own privilege shell be cracked by looking at the blind spots. I was so thankful for Otto to remind us that we can discover blind spot after blind spot after blind spot. It's never done. So that's what I take from the session with me now. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And our final voice and video is Catherine Goldman-Schiller.
Hi, Antoinette. And by the way, it's Skylar, like the sky up there. So I like that fact. So that's why I keep on mentioning it. So this is my second time in a session today. And I was really inspired by you, Otto, in talking about blind spots and privilege. And what came to me in this huge, it's hard to put in words because it was a feeling thing, but I got this huge memory of being a child and being driven through New York City where I grew up, and seeing and sensing and smelling how differently different people lived. And I had this feeling like overwhelmed then, and I'd forgotten about this. I felt overwhelmed that I had more than other people, and that it was my job to give back. And I felt that as a child, and nobody told me that that was my job, but I felt like that was my job as a child. And I couldn't see how to do it, but I felt that my whole life. But I never connected that with the notion of white privilege, which was a very uncomfortable label. I don't like labels in general. I'm not really good at putting on labels and being labeled. So I just got that connection, and I think that that's going to be very, very valuable for me. And also realizing that it was a child's insight was important, because the way children sense the world, it's very total. It's not like in little pieces or analyzed. It's just like this big thing. And so, and it fills your heart, and it kind of can stop you as well as empowering you, because you know it's bigger than you know what to do with. So it was so helpful to get that.
Thank you so much, Catherine, Skylar. I love it. And I saw that Iman just brought a hand in, so I just want to make space for just a few more seconds for that, and I hope that that's okay with everybody. Here we go, Iman, there you go.
Hi. So today something's happened for me, and that's that I think I've come full circle with this journey in this realization that it is that one small step. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be these massive systems and politics and so much have to change. It is really that's my children, these institutions that are indoctrinating them. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see myself anymore, and I thought it had stopped, and I just had to say that it is this time that we have to have these conversations with them, to have them understand that they can also be we go forward, and there is hope. There is a lot of hope when we look at them, and we have an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iman, and thank you for working with the tech to share the message. And I invite you also to type it into the chat, because there were a few moments that it got a little spotty, and we really want to make sure that we get the fullness of your message. So thank you for sharing all of you, all of us. We have some living examples here with us today who have really been part of the community on this journey, and have, when Otto and I were chatting about this earlier, just have really been holders of the ecosystem that they are within, and have really been building. There are so many projects that actually many of them have been building and holding and co-creating, and it's pretty amazing. And to ask them to pick one project to talk about in a short period of time was quite difficult. So I'm just blown away by the and even the few who are going to share with us this in this session are just few of many as well. So thank you for representing tonight. Thank you for sharing your stories this morning, and thank you for sharing your stories with us. I'd like to bring Abby on in first, who is based in Manila, but has also been hosting and holding the Japanese GAIA. So Abby, I turn it over to you to share with us your GAIA story, and over to you, Abby.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm Abby, joining from the Philippines. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share the initiative that we named GAIA, obviously inspired by GAIA. GAIA is a platform of making SDGs everybody's business. And it's a prototype of our ULab 2X project by our team called Learning Nation from the Philippines. And GAIA provides a space for learning from the people who have already started sustainable initiatives, connecting initiatives for collaboration, building network, cultivating our sustainability awareness, and activating intention and action just like GAIA. As of now, it is a bi-weekly online gathering of anybody interested in SDGs. And Philippines has so many SDGs challenges: poverty, hunger, healthcare issues, education, climate crisis, deforestation, plastic waste, inequality, injustice, poor infrastructure. You just name it, we got it. So it's like a museum of SDG challenges. So our original intention was to really raise more awareness among general public, to trigger more action, to make positive impact to SDGs. However, during our ULAB 2X journey, when we did 3D mapping of the current system, we realized that there are already so many grassroots level initiatives existing, addressing a lot of SDG challenges, but lacking coordination and collaboration for them to scale and create greater impact. So this was our blind spot in a sense before we started the use process. So our team's intention evolved, not only raising awareness, but also enabling or catalyzing more collaboration among the existing initiatives so that they can make greater impacts. So maybe this is a network of networks that Rick was mentioning earlier. Can I ask for my first slide to be shared with everyone? The slide you'll be seeing is the really busy slide. And in this busyness is the whole point. The past 4 months, our ULAB 2X team was really busy. But I want to make just 2 points using this busy slide. First point is that our 4 months journey was cradled and empowered by ULAB program, GAIA Journey, which gave us deep questions every week or every other week to contemplate, and the sense of connectedness to the global community. And Youth Academy, digital leadership training, enabled the 4 core team members of our team to facilitate the whole process digitally because our face-to-face meeting with our members are no longer possible. And U-Process helped us let go of our pre-COVID original plan, although we invested significant amount of time, effort, money, energy to prepare ourselves with the original plan, but we had to let go of it. Second point is that in hindsight, the COVID was a positive contributor in presencing GAIA. In the past 4 months, our core team spent close to 200 hours together on this project, mostly online. But it was made possible only because we were under lockdown. We're not going anywhere. Our usual business was down. We had a lot of time to allocate on this project of ULAB 2X. Now you may wonder why GAIA. So it's inspired by GAIA, but some other meaning is that GAIA in Filipino language means replicating. And GAIA in Japanese language, my own mother tongue, GAIA in Japanese represents the sound of people talking. So GAIA is a replication of GAIA with Philippine-specific context and focus on SDGs. And people meet, talk, make GAIA sound, and we collaborate to create the sustainable planet together. So can I ask for the next slide? Our first 4 sessions of GAIA, we invited speakers addressing poverty and education, fighting deforestation, and disaster relief in a more green way, and saving children from online sexual abuse and exploitation. And I want to note that the 2 projects on the right side are also ULAB 2X projects from the Philippines. And since last night, I attended first, second session also, and also asked us, what is a piece of a path to the future or a seed that you're holding in your hand, which you can cultivate moving forward? And for me, this GAIA just started last month, is the piece and seed. And I feel very strongly about sustainability initiatives together with my teammate, core team, and also extended team, and then the community supporting us. But it's really scary for me, a lot of unknowns. It's too big, too complicated, too much uncertainty around it. And in many of ULAB 2X meetings in the Philippines, I told my colleagues, I'm scared. I don't know if I really want to do this. What GAIA, the past 14 weeks, has been doing to me was to slowly kind of trickling water and a little pinch of nutrients or fertilizer for the seed to germinate. And last night, or this morning in your time, Antoinette, Eileen Fisher's session, I got some more dose of those water and nutrients through a powerful word, like say yes to unknown. What's mine to do? What's yours to do? And commitment. Even when you think it's imperfect, you have no idea, but when you feel you have to do it, commit. Once you commit, people will see it and the support will come. And also the image Kelvy shared. I saw the turtle ready to fly, and I sensed energy and joy, and I felt excitement. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much for GAIA, ULAB, U Academy, and everybody in Presencing Institute and the GAIA community all over the world. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat po. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Abby. So powerful to hear and see the various initiatives that you've been working on and holding together. And as I looked at that slide, and you counted out the hours, I was 200 hours that you all have been together. It definitely says a lot, and I have lots of questions about how that all works for you. But I do hope that we stay in touch and keep learning. And I've seen in the Zoom chat already people wanting more information. The next ecosystem leader that we have with us is Janine, who has been also holding the Portuguese language track and is just been a phenomenal leader and holder, allowing so many voices to come in and just activating so many sparks across her region. And is going to be sharing with us today a bit about what has been going on in the federal district in Brazil. So over to you, Janine.
Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you. And I will share a project about federal district tonight. And I'll be speaking on behalf of Professor Wilson and our team here. And so I will share some slides and a lot of information here. So we chose these pictures because they represent Brasilia, that is the federal capital of Brazil, and the workers that built Brasilia, the capital. And here is the crack that our team arose from, because I will explain and you understand why I'm talking about this. And so what I would like to explain to you, that is the project starts when Otto invite us all of a sudden to join the GAIA journey. And it just called us, in the middle of a week, and then we didn't have time to think. It was like when a kid won the first bike, and then when you won the first bike, you have to ride. And we started writing, and then to manage it, we find the new ways to co-create a safe space. and which until then was not available in Brazil, the time between the leaders, among all the specialists we were in Theory U here. But then what happened? Several of these GAIA leaders, participants here, were not ready to collaborate in the rethinking of the DF project. And I'm sure that you all leaders in Theory U, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes we are not ready to work together. And when we started the Collective U, we realized that some obstacles started to appear due to the need for the quick action without much time to think together, to get to know each other better. That was when the need arose in us to make the individual you between us, to address our shadows. We're talking about blind spots, to integrate the shadows in us and to use the shadows to recognize that they could be forces for the transformations, to help the society to regenerate, not as a force, not as impediments for us to relate between us. So we recognize that this was the best lesson for us as a team to prepare this container, to clarify this clarifying moment for us. This openness that our team had was fundamental to create this subtle field which allow us to prepare this for more than 400 participants of the project to have a new experience of deep listening and generative conversations on the arid themes of public policies, especially in this time in Brazil. And I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about in this moment in Brazil. So the rethinking of Federal District 2030 is a project that we are conducting more than 30 online seminars to create a secure containers to evolve citizens in formulating and implement public policies here. So this will be a role model to many other big cities and metropolis in the world. This spark of the future started with an invitation from one senator of Federal District, Isalci Lucas. He's a senator here of many others. And he asked Professor Wilson to organize a face-to-face dialogue in March 2020, so last March, with 600 people in the project rethinking of Federal District 2030. So as Federal District, what I mean Brasilia, the city where the government is, plus 30 small cities around, totalizing 4 million inhabitants. So this is not just one city, it's a kind of a state. And actually the senator was trying, he was in the third attempt of this movement of his, but the first with Theory U. And I have to say that he was the first one that showed openness of the mind and the heart to do this, because as a political, he's in the public policies for more than 30 years. And then to do this, in order to listen the voters, to listen the citizens, as we are doing with him right now, he has to let go a lot of assumptions that he has. So when Professor Wilson listened to him, he noticed that right in the beginning indicate that he wanted to build the public policies center in the citizens. That's why Professor and our core team really believed in the project. So later in coronavirus and quarantine and face-to-face meetings was not possible to do, we transformed in online meetings in Zoom, and we used the U-Journey to create safe containers so the participants could talk in small groups, word cafe topics, and address Theory U and autos and everything, the 8 acupuncture points and 4 levels of listening, 4 levels of consciousness. In each meeting, we had already 7 seminars with them in a very, very intense week. In each meeting, we just address, in each meeting, we address 20 minutes of Theory U. We are teaching them, we are letting them know how Theory U works and everything. So it has been a class for each of them. In these 7 seminars, we had more than 400 people came back to believe they can dream in a better future. They have a voice to create the public policies in this future. So this is what we are aiming to do here, is letting people believe again in public policies, even in this time that we are here in Brazil. And the result of this project will be a strategic plan to federal district and the role model, because we already have as a partner one of the most recognized universities, Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and one of the organs related to the Ministry of Innovation in Brazil, the Ministry of Innovation. So we are having stewards, strong stewards with us, and we aim to be a model, not just for the metropolis in Brazil, but to the world. And to put the part of the GAIA team for the 3-year team in Brazil was something very important to us. So we do believe in this project. With this, I turn back to you, Antoinette, and thank you for the opportunity.
Janini, this is phenomenal. It is just so inspiring to see what you've been able to do, and really just the evolution that, you know, continues to keep moving forward. And being part of the Portuguese track earlier and hearing the many initiatives that are just, you know, there's so many incredible initiatives, but to see this and I already see people reaching out to hear more. So thank you so much for sharing it here and for the incredible work that you keep doing to hold and keep moving this forward and set the example. So our final story will be from Marian, who I don't know if Edison's also joining to share, but Marian Davila is going to share about radio podcast, which has been something that has emerged from the GAIA experience across many regions. So over to Marian.
Hi, good night. Well, for us, our team, it was a very little team when we started by really something emerged from for the field. We was in social media, and I live here in Chile. No, I am from Costa Rica, but I live in Chile. And in Latin America, always we have very much problems about to have internet. We was not, our group was not thinking about that, but we were in social media meeting, and in some moment when we talk a blind spot, we think blind spot, yes, but in some moment when we are hearing the people hearing about how to have good communication, how you can give the people quality of education, I will start to think deeply. Everybody not have internet. It's like so spontaneous about insight, no? Everybody not have internet here. In Spanish, people don't have so much opportunities in this language. And we start to talk with my other partner. I said, Caterina, maybe we can make a radio. I work in radio now, social radio, but I was thinking in this moment, maybe can be this spark that I say, Antoinette, that really go out, and we start to think about that at the first time. And the first we do, that's to know really how many people it's outside the net. And when we start to see in UNESCO research, I see that 70% of the population of the world, this is a blind spot, tell me. Everybody is not inside the net. And it was for us like a change of paradigm. Really, it was like how we can do to give transformation, to give education for these people, really for change the consciousness, for make the transformation, to educate about sustainability. Anybody knows so much about that? Because they don't have access to the information. At the end, that you have access to the information also is not so quality information. This was the first part of our fire, inside fire that we have. And yes, we meet a group of persons, an economist, I am psychologist and an engineer. We try to start to prototyping. The prototyping by understanding what we want to speak to people. What is the really mean and purpose to have intention and an action, and how we can do very complicated things and in very so simple things for the people can make integration of the information in good quality. And yes, we do first a prototype who you can see the prototype in internet in YouTube. Now we put there only the intro to try to understand our orientation ourselves. Really, this project is very special because we don't have any intention really. We are only open the heart, open the will, open the mind. And a person who comes, we was working in another countries. Vivian Schlinder is in France, but he came to Chile to make a meeting with me and Patrick Walk, and after we was in the radio, and after we have Edinson, who is in the United States, that he say, hey, hello, let's do a radio podcast. And now we start to move, and each person that we speak, and after we speak with Janine, it was amazing. How can make synergy? Because Portuguese, we start to see we don't have to have frontiers. For what? What is a frontier? The only frontier is the language. And we have very incredible people here and leaders and people in communities. We start to talk with Janine about how to make this Portuguese track. No, we make this radio with Janine now. And I try to see for Africa people with the French maybe. It's incredible what you can make this amplification and this blind pod to go inside and open. Maybe when I talk with somebody about the radio, it's incredible because open another possibility and open the scalability of this program. It can be incredible. We can give package of production of some topics that we really want to know, and make the one wings of the PI, media and the radio and PI have all this program. We can fix it very much information in good quality, and we can make packages and give to free to another radios and share it when we want. And every community can take very good topics, very development topics. This amplification is very incredible, and also the impact, because we can decide, like say we talked a lot with Janine about that and our group, and we can decide what we want to teach in a good way then. And this is transformation. This is for us, really transcend frontier, forget about that, and be together. And I am very grateful to be here this night. I want to be sure on that. This is for me education in the life. I go to want education in the street. The radio is one of the channels, and 70% of the population. This is only that I want to say. Thank you so much, because I hope that really all the things that we want, we can share more deeply in the global forum with a more prototyping and more making the very good more project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariana. It was fantastic and just so inspiring for all the different ways that we can and really just tune into our intention and really just stay with the impulse of what's wanting to emerge. What's possible when we want to provide access and amplify voices and really use our gifts and, being able to use the gift of being able to communicate in different ways. So I know that many of us are already activated in a lot of different ways, but I'd love to just invite you to type into the chat anything that may be coming up around what action you're wanting to take now. I think a hub has already been created in the last few moments in the chat here. So I know that this group is ready. So we are please feel free to type directly into the chat. And then we will be turning to Kelvy to just hear and capture what has been, what is being held throughout this journey, and Kelvy has so much for us to really see and hold in her process. So yeah, they're just wonderful places and spaces that are coming in with links, hubs. So feel free to continue to chat in here or type that into the chat, and also share in the GaiaJourney.org space where I know we already are, but that just energy of the hubs and macro hubs and our topic interest areas, just feeling the sense of flight that's taking off right now, which reminds me of Kelvy's image. We've seen, she's been calling this image Wilma, and we've been seeing Wilma grow wings and fly. So I would love to see where we are with Wilma, or what has emerged throughout this last session, and really hear about your process, Kelvy, knowing that you have been very much on the edge, creating and evolving your process of generative scribing and the gift that you have given so many of us in the world, with your practice and with visual resonance. So I turn it over to you, Kelvy.
Thanks, Antoinette, and thanks, everyone. It's kind of hard to imagine that this is the end, but we all know it's just the beginning, right? Every end is just the beginning. So I want to share something that is a compilation of all the images that I've done through the entire cycle. So I've been working into this big wall behind me, and sometimes you've seen me drawing on the wall like I was doing earlier, and other times recently I've been working on the iPad. And the process overall has been an ongoing deconstruction and reconstruction. And my thinking is that it's in parallel to what we're trying to understand, what's needed with society, what's needed with ourselves, what we are willing to undo and let go of, and what's needed to sustain, and how we keep the essential part to carry forward. So with that, I'll share this. It's about, it's just under 3 minutes. I'm sorry, we're a little over, but hopefully this will help you relive the experience of the past weeks and our journey together, and we can sink into it as it goes, and it's in silence. All right, so I will share my screen. So enjoy.
using the prompt, I see, I sense, I feel. Just noting what is coming up in you, in us now. I see, I sense, or I feel. I'm just typing what's there for us in the chat. I see a phoenix. I see integration of dark and light. I see riding the wave. I see an awakening. I sense possibility, strength, hope. I see hope. Intention at all scales. Peace, dove. I see the expansiveness of these conversations. I see possibilities. I see movement towards a positive future. I sense passion for the new. I feel will to do. I sense us about to fly. I see the winged hope rising. I sense a collective healing. The shadow knows. I see so many opportunities to presence. There is no wrong place to begin. I see changing and focus for the time being. I see a bird. I feel a strong pull from the future, leap of faith. I sense a complex beauty unfolding. It's time to fly. I see, sense hope. I sense into a leap of faith, of commitment. I see collective source. I feel I'm not alone in the world. Evolution through images. I sense support. I see light. I sense hope. I sense the possibilities in the shadow. Release of ownership. I see progress that's like moving through water. Turtle was gone a long time ago. I see a phoenix rising. I feel moved by the flow of images. Seeing Kelvy's work, so elegant and lovely, is just a perfect affirmation of the good that is to come. I feel our collective poetry here and now, and thank you, Kelvy, for this incredible, incredible seeing and sensing and mirroring back and holding us throughout this journey, holding the feeling of it. Thank you, Kelvy. Thank you all. Incredibly powerful. I'd like to invite Otto, before we close, to just share any final words.
I feel moved by the being that's about to rise, to fly, and that has an open energy organ and radiation from the heart. So I guess that's what I take with me, and maybe that's what we take with us from the first part of the Gaia journey here. This is the end. The end is the real beginning, and we each have a piece. We have it in our hand, and we have it in our heart. And we just saw that in that being that's is about to take off, which somehow says about the possibility, the profound possibility that we are on the verge of stepping into, but that's also very fragile. So it needs each of us to show up and to do our work on the piece that we are holding. That's how I'm leaving, with gratitude really to everyone, to the whole team, there's a large team, to everyone kind of who's doing that together. And I feel confidence that this is exactly the beginning that we need, and that will lead us into the path that's not there, but that we will create by walking forward.
Thank you, Otto. Thank you all. We will be seeing each other again at the Global Forum, and which is July 10th and 11th. We, as Eva shared earlier, will have a survey just going into the chat now, which is actually the space for us to be able to just be able to share with one another what that step in the path is, what that next step is for all of us. And in these next few weeks and months, it is now up to us. As we just saw in Kelvy's image, it is time for us to fly, and it is time for us to spread our wings and lift up and lift off, and continuing to bring that into our own communities, our own circles, and then come back and share with one another once again in a few months. So it's no longer just up to one or two of us, or a few of us, or the 100 of us. It's up to all of us to move this forward, and to lift our wings and to fly. So yes, the slide that was just shared, GaiaJourney.org, is the place where you'll find more information about the Global Forum, about all of everything we'll be doing next. And you can continue to share on #GaiaJourney, where you can share any reflections, and we can stay in touch with one another. And you can stay in touch with each other from the other sessions earlier, although it seems that many of you have been here throughout today and through the many weeks. We are just beginning. So thank you all. Thank you for arriving and for moving forward together. We will, and we are already in the path. So with that, we can unmute and say thank you and goodbye. Take care, everybody. See you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Mabuhay.
Bye.
Thank
Everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Antoinette.
Thank you. Be well.